It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that Podagraph. Podagraph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 120 of Let Me Get That Podagraph. As always, my name is Drew, or the DH, and we are back with, we have an awesome episode today. As the man of the hour, Genamint founder Kevin Lenane joins us a little later today to discuss their buyout from PSA. He's now working with PSA, and PSA is bringing some artificial intelligence, so to speak, to the market and to their grading process. So really excited to be talking to him. The news just came out yesterday, so a whole lot of unanswered questions. Hopefully we can get all of those answered for you today. So really looking forward to this interview. As soon as I saw the press release, jumped on the phone, got the interview set up. Cannot wait for this later with you guys. But we've got a jam-packed show and it's going to be an awesome one. But guys, we're going to start off this week talking about, last week we talked about how Topps went public. And when they went public, they announced that they were getting into the NFT world. And, they must have had this completely ready, as Topps did drop their official NFT program this week. And, if you thought Top Shot was difficult, if you thought Top Shot had issues, oh my God. Now, I'm going to hold reservations till I see what the marketplace is like and see how everything goes. But I'm noticing the same thing with all of these NFTs, including with Top Shot, but with Topps, just a bevy of problems. Despite the fact that you had packs that were supposed to be issued that were then delayed, then they had to delay the pack process on the day of, but purchasing these NFTs, you're bouncing between the Topps site, 3 different application programs. It's just a complete and total mess. It is the most un-user-friendly NFT program that I've ever seen in my life. And Top Shot, at least, Top Shot, yes, it has its issues. I'm approved to withdraw. I know a lot of people aren't yet. But Top Shot does have a lot of issues that they're working out and in their beta stages. But Topps, this was just bad. I was thoroughly disappointed in the initial Topps NFT. And looking at the marketplace is completely dead. The marketplace is not moving. It is basically people buying packs or massively rare moments, and that's it. And this is the big problem that you're having with Top Shot now, is the marketplace has absolutely plummeted, and it's basically only chasing after the pack drops. And that's a major problem with these NFT programs, and something that every one of them, especially Topps, are going to have to figure out. Because it looks like Topps is going all in on this. First of all, you've got to be able to complete these NFT transactions without 15 different windows open on your browser. It's absurd. Every single time you click something, pop in, log into here, pop in, log into a new screen. Absolutely ridiculous. The other issue I have is there's, at least with Top Shot, you're getting video clips, you're getting something. This, you're getting a glorified season 1 card, and that's about it. Nothing special, nothing different about it, possibly a low minted number. But then looking at the marketplace, there's no transactions. No one's really buying these low numbered parallels and everything like that. And it's what we talked about on Hobby Hotline this week. If we're going to get into this NFT space, I personally love NFTs. I like them. I have done very well with them, and cryptocurrency, I believe, is going to be a massive part of the future. However, when we're talking about the hobby, we're talking about an industry that has been built upon fungible things you can hold. And now all these companies are shifting into an area where they're trying to sell things that you cannot hold, that have nothing beyond just a photo. You saw how Panini's blockchain, quote unquote, went, and it's it's been pretty terrible outside of the physical cards. If Topps were to create NFTs that were special looking cards and you had the option to get the actual card with it, I think you might go a long way. But to get people that look at NFTs and say, this is stupid, it doesn't belong in the hobby, just like we talked about on Hobby Hotline, you've got to start adding some kind of additional benefit to it. Maybe not every single thing, but when you get these rare, these ultra rare, these exclusive NFTs that are so much and that people are paying up to like $10,000 for, create an experience. Whether it be a Zoom call with an athlete, whether it be something additional, adding additional perks to these NFTs, even if it's just at the start, to draw people in that say, I'm not going to deal with this because I, A, don't want to understand it, B, don't care to understand it, and C, if I can't hold anything, I don't want it. People's minds can be changed easily, but to just cut and dry Topps someone who's always given out physical cards outside of their digital apps, which were a complete failure, you've got to start out adding some sort of benefit to these NFTs, which a lot of companies are doing. The WWE did an incredible job with their Undertaker and their WrestleMania NFTs, offering all sorts of packages, visits to Raw, WrestleMania Ultimate VIP packages, things that would make you want to buy this in addition to just the NFT. And what that did, that brought a lot of people that would normally completely ignore an NFT into the space. Now, I understand that's kind of counterproductive to the idea of what an NFT is, but I'm not talking about the people that already have their Coinbase accounts, that already have Top Shot accounts, that already are flying through crypto on a daily basis. I'm talking about the people that want nothing to do with it, and I know a lot of you listening are probably like that, but if you're buying one of these packs and you have a chance to say, I don't know, say a special locker room experience, if you hit a low numbered limited edition one or anything along those lines, that type of stuff will draw a massive amount of people in. But Topps really rushed this NFT thing out way too fast. I think announcing you're getting into the NFT space was brilliant. I think you probably should have waited 2 or 3 months and built out a complete platform. But after seeing the absolute morons, and I feel comfortable saying that because I know the people personally, I went to college with them, that built Topps website, I don't want those guys anywhere near anything that has to do with NFT and actual currency of my money, to be honest. And I mean, they needed to wait, they needed to take some time, and they needed to build out a more user-friendly and a more complete platform. It's been a total mess of an initial drop by Topps. And honestly, if I had to make a guess right now, if they're going to keep it this way and this is how it's going to be, this will not last. Topps has got to make adjustments. They've got to look at how Top Shot's moving. Even though Top Shot has slowed a little bit, it still has its advantages to it. You just have to play it a certain way. Topps right now is basically buy the packs, sell them on the market, and hope people are going to buy them. But, I mean, it's basically a break-even proposition unless you're buying the $100, $200 packs, and then you're getting one of the first minted cards or something. Then, yes, you might get a couple of sales. But looking at that marketplace 24 hours after it opened was pathetic. When Top Shot's market opened, that's all everyone was doing, was buying moments. Now you're looking at this Topps marketplace and, I mean, it's a desert wasteland. And if they don't find a way to get interaction and movement in that secondary marketplace, then this is completely doomed. But Topps going public, they announced their NFTs, they dropped their NFTs immediately after, and at least in my opinion, this was a massive and total failure. Like I said, I'm gonna give them time, as I wish they put beta on this, but they wouldn't do that because they're Topps and they have their feeling that they're superior, so they're gonna say that this is the NFT program. Well, I hope to God it's beta because it needs to change quite a bit. It was an incredibly rough initial drop for Topps and their NFT program. But y'all, we're gonna move on now to the segment we debuted last week, and we're gonna keep the name because I love it. We're gonna get right into movers and shakers. If you missed last week's show, this is basically where I'm gonna talk to you guys about a couple of players in the hobby that are putting up astronomical numbers. Some of them are just performing as good as they always have. But guys, that cards are either standing still or dropping when they should be rising. Because let's face it, guys, there's always opportunity and value in this hobby, because there's too many young or established players that have too much talent. They're playing too well. A lot of players get lost in the shuffle. So here at Movers and Shakers, hopefully we can put up a couple of guys for you to take a look at and maybe snag some of these cards before they just skyrocket. Now, the first guy up this week is a player that I think is going to be an absolute stud in the future. This man is going to be a linchpin of this organization for quite some time. He's putting up incredible numbers, yet is stuck on a team that's a small market, never really has a superstar that gets a ton of hype. But this man, I think, could be the one that turns the tables on this. Or when he eventually moves to a better team, as most people do, these cards are going to skyrocket. But right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is incredibly undervalued. He is a player that him and Luguentz Dort are going to be the future of Oklahoma City, at least until OKC realizes, we're going to rebuild yet again, because that seems to be what they do. They get a bunch of good players and then they ship them off and they start all over again. That's just kind of how that franchise has been. So Shai is stuck kind of where Westbrook was and Harden for a long time. Stuck in OKC, cards not getting a lot of hype and value while they put up astronomically good numbers. Shai's had a couple of injury issues, but he seems to be over those and he came back from them. He has not slowed his production one bit. Shai is so incredibly low right now. He is a 1000% buy, especially his Prism and his Optic. I mean, you can get Prism and Optic PSA 10s for incredibly cheap. You can get silvers, you can get hollows, you can get colors for ridiculously low prices compared to players that are putting up way lower stats than he is and have a much lower ceiling. Shai has not even begun to reach his full potential. And yet he's already, in my opinion, a bona fide every year all-star. This is a player that will make a first, second, or third team all-NBA within the next 2 years easily. Jump all over Shai. He's the very first person in this week's Movers and Shakers. And sticking on the basketball side, I've got one more guy that I just don't understand it. He's in a massive market, and I'm talking about an incredibly big market. He's playing tremendously, yet he gets absolutely no love. That man, of course, being R.J. Barrett. Now, of course, he was very much hyped last year, and for some reason, there was an incredible amount of hype, and then his prices completely dropped off, as the Knicks are the Knicks. They were completely terrible last year. So his prices completely dropped off as nobody wanted to even watch the atrocity that was that basketball. And to be honest, RJ struggled a little bit. Adding quickly to the mix, the moves the Knicks have made, it looks like they may actually be able to develop young players. They've never been able to develop young players before, but it looks like they're able to now, as quickly as developing incredibly well. But RJ Barrett is becoming a bona fide superstar. His cards are not reflecting that whatsoever. RJ Barrett is putting up numbers. I mean, there are guys whose Prism Optic, top cards are going for 3 times the amount of RJ, and RJ would put them to shame every single night. You put this man on a playoff team, a team that's actually going somewhere, and this dude's cards skyrocket. RJ Barrett right now, his Prism PSA 10s, I think, are hovering around like 130 to 150. Are you kidding me? This kid's a star. He is going to be a star, whether it's a Knicks team that eventually figures it out, or if he's one of those pieces that shipped out as New York realizes they have to continually rebuild like OKC. RJ Barrett, same position Shai is in. But New York is a big market. He should have that. New York should be all over him. Every Knicks fan in the world should be collecting RJ Barrett cards, because this kid is the real deal. But his cards, he's putting up 24, 25, 30 points a game in addition to everything else, and his cards aren't moving. That's going to change. That will change. Get them now. They're only going to go up. It's a guarantee. And our third mover and shaker this week, we're going to go right over to Major League Baseball. And, well, one of the most popular guys in the league. A lot of people have been all over him. But for some reason, yet again, the cards aren't moving. Last week, I told you about Ron Acuna, someone who everyone loves. Yet his cards were not moving. They've started to move now, but they weren't at the time. And this week, I've got another one for you. And that man is no other than Vlad Guerrero Jr. Vlad's cards, it makes no sense to me. Vlad's cards are so ridiculously cheap. The man is putting up incredible numbers. I mean, he is playing incredibly well, has a massively hot start to this year, yet his cards still aren't going up. And he was one of those players that they held off on Series 1. You know, they put him at the no-number short print was his first true rookie. That no-number short print is the equivalent of an Acuna bat down, basically. That card is criminally undervalued at a PSA 10 of around $200 or so. If you can get that card for anywhere around $250 or so, get it, get it, get it. Those cards are going to soar. All of Vlad's cards are going to absolutely soar. I mean, in 18 games this year, already 4 home runs, 12 RBIs. His OPS is 1.163. I mean, are you kidding me? His slugging at 650, OBP at 513, batting average of 383. Yet his cards are not moving. Vlad is somebody that, just like all these other guys that I'm talking about, if you don't notice a trend here, all of these guys have superstar. I'm talking MVP superstar type level performance in them and potential in them. Yet their cards are not moving yet. But they will. Get them while you can. Vlad Guerrero, incredibly hot start, shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. And he's on a Blue Jays team that is going to be very, very good, but also is going to make a lot of highlights because they've got a lot of power hitters. Right now, Bo Bichette is taking more attention in the hobby than Vlad Guerrero Jr. Now, Bo Bichette, I am a huge fan on. I think he's going to be incredible also. I think the two of them together are going to be monsters. But Vlad, for some reason, even with this hot start, slimming down, adding a lot more muscle, but losing a lot of weight, and you're seeing it in his performance, his stuff is still not moving. But guys, if he continues this for even 5 to 7 more games, watch out. But that's going to wrap up another edition of Movers and Shakers. So make sure, guys, take a look at Shy, RJ Barrett, and Vlad Guerrero. These are guys you do not want to miss the boat on. And welcome back, everybody, to episode 120 of Let Me Get That Podagraph. And on the line, a very special guest. As soon as the news dropped earlier this week, had to have him on the show. And that, of course, is the founder of Genamint. And now, I guess the title's in, they're building it right now. But with PSA, the VP of Product Management, Mr. Kevin Lenane, joining the show with us today. Kevin, thank you so much for taking some time out. I know you're probably quite busy right now.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, you know, as soon as I heard everything going on, I work for a company, Walk-Off Submissions, where we assess cards to see if they should be subbed to PSA. So I'm very heavily involved in the grading game, and also want to have you on the show because so many people obviously are grading these days. It's become enormous. But when I saw this move by PSA as Nat obviously taking over, very intelligent person and working with some amazing intelligent people, I knew a lot of things were in the works. I knew he was going to be making a lot of changes, but this one shocked me quite a bit as I hadn't really heard of Genamint yet, and B, just bringing in the use of artificial intelligence into the industry. And we'll touch on a lot of this right now, but first things first, tell everybody a little bit about what exactly Genamint is, because from my understanding, it hadn't even fully launched yet.
Yeah, it's kind of what you were alluding to. And I'll speak about it, how I was originally going to kind of build the product sort of back in time. But it originally was conceived to be a grading tool that could be done sort of in the confines of your own home via an app. And, we utilize technology to do that. And we utilize things like, there are different parts of machine learning that we use actually for identify each subgrade. We use, random forests and convolutional neural networks and things like that to actually like identify the defects and things in the card. And like I said, I can get into that a little bit more. But that was the original premise, was to use technology to let people grade cards at home. And then it kind of evolved from there into like maybe more of a service. We were going to instead of an app at first, we were actually going to integrate with like breakers. And basically like, if you have like Loop or somebody on Loop, let's say, that's breaking cards and, they're pulling out cards, we could actually grade them live, right? Grade quickly and live. It might not be exactly the grade you get from a grader just because of subjectivity, but it'll give you a good sense of like, is this worth grading? So almost like a pre-grade tool for stream, et cetera. And so like there was a various kind of plans we had in terms of launching this and like various requirements in terms of accuracy, right? Like that pre-grading tool, there's like the stakes are a little bit lower because you're not actually like slabbing anything.
Right.
And I was actually for a while up in the air that whether or not things even needed to be slabbed, that like if you were going to scan something, at home and then sell it, you could mail it in the top loader and the other person could scan the same card, same condition. Like there didn't seem to be a need to slab. And I kind of like changed my mind a little bit on that because basically the behavior of getting something slabbed actually proved to be pretty popular. But so I think I kind of changed my opinion on that. But the short comment on the last part of what you said is that, yeah, we were intentionally not like doing any marketing and things like that, mostly because I was waiting. It's such an obvious idea. It's not like an original idea. People have thought about this for a decade because you see something like Google Goggles or whatever, or just computer vision engineering, you're like, oh, okay, like that should work for cards. The reality is much more difficult, but I didn't want to be out there shouting around because there was just so much noise. There's so many people that said they wanted to do it, talked about doing it, and just hadn't even remotely approached it. Like, and I could tell from the people that were working on it, like that there's no chance of them actually doing it. But I didn't want to become part of that noise. And so I basically just spent the time building it. And when we finally got it in a serviceable way, working as a demo, it was pretty compelling pretty early. So that's kind of took us to the demo stage. And then we, took some investment and kind of pushed it forward. But that's kind of like the early story of what we were doing and also kind of why we were maybe less well known, which was, like I said, kind of intentional because of the nature of what we were doing.
Sure. And, I look at that and I kind of, I agree with everything that you guys were doing. And I like that strategy, and it obviously worked out incredibly well for you. But we were at a time, through the whole pandemic era and everything and the boom of cards where so many different new apps and so many different new things were coming out, and a lot of them ended up completely flopping. And so throwing yourself into that category, whether, everything could have ended up completely different no matter how good the product actually was. And so, I do like that strategy. And like I said, it definitely worked out great for you, as now you've partnered up with, at least in my opinion, the best grading company in the industry, and obviously the industry leader, and a company that looks like they're really starting to change the old format, adjust to the new, the new standards, and really up their already high standards. And so when I saw this purchase, the first things first, is the app still going to, and everything that you had planned, is that stuff still in any way, shape, or form going to be done, or is this going to be implemented solely at PSA?
So I don't think I have any firm, because it did, like, the announcement was pretty close on the close. So I don't have like any super firm answers. Like, I have only been an employee of PSA for like 3 days.
Right.
But like, I'll say this, I would say for sure, the bulk of what we're doing is kind of, imagine that and I don't know how familiar you are with like software, but an API is basically just like a connection. You're just connecting like an application to something. And so like the API was basically how you're going to service streamers. We were just going to plug into the stream, whatever the stream was, plug in, grab the images, and then grade the cards. And like you can imagine that working in a similar way in a situation where there's 50 graders, grading cards with cameras around. And so it's basically going to function as assistive technology. So it's like you can imagine an interface pulling up, who the card is, the set, the year. That's actually a big part of it. And then like highlighting any defects. But actually, and that's, you can almost think of it like SaaS software for appraisers. That's kind of like the way I've been talking about it. Like it's like CRM software. So like if you're a customer service rep and you're calling somebody, you're a salesperson, you're calling somebody, if you have like decent sales software, CRM software on your computer, when you call this person, your VoIP's going to be going through the machine or whatever, and the number's going to pull up all this information on the person you're calling, how often you've called them, the company's call history, whatever public information they could find, address, etc. So like all that stuff's right there. And that's kind of how it should work with a card. Is like you got the card, all this stuff should populate right there. And so like that's kind of the long-term vision. There's a longer term, which I'll get to in a sec, but that's sort of I call it the medium term. The short term is, okay, to do that, though, we actually need a couple things, really one big thing, which is, it's kind of two related things, which is getting photos of the cards and then fingerprinting those photos. And fingerprinting means identifying the unique marks on the card that make the card unique. So once we do that, then anytime that card pops up again, we can get through that thing with the phone number, right? It's like a phone number, except it's dots on a card. And so it doesn't require a barcode or anything. It's just already resident in the design and imperfection in the cards. And so that's like a big step. And that first step is something we want to do early because it's sort of the gateway into a lot of these other things we want to do, photos and fingerprints. It also happens to be a great way to prevent alteration and fraud. So we see those cards again. They get people find a PSA 5 vintage card they think they could press in the stone press and trim it out and cut the side off and get a PSA 5 to PSA 8 bump. That gets detected immediately, right? Because it's a couple pixels of width difference. And it'll flag and say, wait a minute, this is the same card, but it's smaller.
It's also going to, I think, really help with a massive issue in the industry where people are getting PSA, lower level PSA cards, cracking them, trying to just clean them up a little bit and resubmit. The fingerprinting is perfect for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and that part isn't like against the rules necessarily.
Right. No.
There's a line of the general line I've sort of gone with. I'm a big Net 54 guy, because I do a lot of vintage, and the sort of line that a lot of people arrive there is like you shouldn't be. You can take something off the card that shouldn't be there. Like if there's a piece of tape on the card or glue or something, and you want to try and get that off with water or whatever, that's fine, right? Like because it wasn't there. But the minute that you start trying to press out corners or change the condition of a card, that's where you cross the line into alteration, in my opinion. Legally, I have no idea, but that's where I would draw the line. And so that's like a big issue. The cleaning up of a card with modern in particular is whatever. The problem is, of course, as you know, is that the population report's actually really important. It's not. It's like this sort of under discussed thing, but it's like everything. It's everything. It's important to the health of the market because, for me, okay, I only collect. I don't have. Oh, sorry, I cursed there.
Hey, you're fine.
I collect vintage wax, right? So I collect vintage wax packs, and even with that, it's a different thing. But people are opening that stuff. And so all I know is that the population's less than what it is. Right. But with cards, it's usually way more, and you have no idea what it actually is. It could be 10% more, it could be 100% more. Yeah. And the scarcity issue is what really kind of destabilized the hobby in the early to mid 90s. It was massive people realized there was massive overproduction from the mid 80s on. And so like that Canseco rookie and that Griffey card and whatever, there were so many of them. People didn't realize how that didn't make sense. And so they've definitely, like with the limited drop and the, limited production, they've tried to address that, but it's totally, it belies the whole experience if you have no sense of what cards exist in what condition. And that's kind of like a side benefit of preventing alteration. I don't exactly even know what we're going to do with it, but it'll be good to understand, like at the very least, we can strike the pop. If we see the same card again out of the slab, we strike all the former examples of it, and so like it'll be helpful in a variety of ways. So that's kind of like the gateway. So that's the first thing we're going to be working on is this fingerprinting piece, because that's like the top of the technology pyramid of what we could do.
Now,
so that's number one.
So as you flesh out and work on the fingerprinting aspect, along those lines and everything that you guys will be implementing, I know a lot of people are hearing the terms AI and they automatically assume that, the human element's being completely taken out of it and all of this. But how is this technology going to benefit the consumer in terms of, is this going to help speed up the process of grading the cards? How is this going to be implemented into the grading process? Like, how much of that human element is going to be taken away?
Yeah, I think I don't want to, there's a lot of what we would call like machine learning involved here, right? So to train the system, it's basically, and I'll just touch a little bit on this, then I'll talk about how it benefits the speed and things like that. But you can think of it like this. We're basically looking at, to train the system, we look at, call it 3 or 4 sets of cards. We have to figure out what the perfect version of those cards should look like. And we basically get grades. We submit human grades on column 3 or 4 sets, 3 or 4 copies of each card. Sometimes less, and we don't have to do every set either. We just need like representative sets of the types of cards. So for chromium cards and 82 tops or whatever, like 82 tops might represent 1980 through 88 or whatever. So like there's representative sets. Point being, we're training it and saying, okay, here's what the card should look like. Because we actually don't have that example either. We have to come up artificially with this concept of what a perfect card should look like based on examples of good grades of condition in each category. And so we're coming up with these things called maths, which are like the assumed perfect version of the card, which we have to basically assemble synthetically based on these other things. We find perfect surfaces, we correlate those surfaces with the rest of the cards in the set, and build perfect surface version of card 1 through 800. Same thing with corner, center, etc. So now that we've got the masks, then we can use that data to look at our example cards. And so we get a card that we want to grade, and we're basically looking for departures. We call them like they're anomalies. They're basically, if you think of a digital image of a card as a series of pixels, colored pixels, then the defects are contrasting or different colored pixels in clusters. So a long cluster of darker colored pixels is probably a crease. A long color of lighter colored pixels that are clustered together that are contrasting might be a scratch, and then a circle could be a print mark, etc. Then we're correlating those defects to individual subgrades, and then mapping all that stuff to overall grades. And so it's even more complicated than it sounds when you think about things like a surface where you're trying to figure out if a scratch is a scratch or a fold in someone's shirt, and also that every card has 70 or 80 defects on it that are significant. And so like, how do you know which defect weighed to which grade? So you have to you really have to do a lot of training, mostly with synthetic data, but with a lot of real data as well, to teach the system the nature of defects and how they impact grades. So my point is, all that stuff is great, except there is some subjectivity. There is absolutely a need for a human to review this stuff. The stakes are high. The grading is really, we'd like to think of it as something for cards that are, at least right now, cards that are somewhat valuable, meaning it's not going to make sense to grade a card that's worth $10. Now, down the line, as we refine the technology, right, there is a potential, so that's kind of the now and the medium term, where this is assistive technology for graders. And honestly, I don't see that changing for most of the high end and even the main, basically the regular service level stuff like it makes perfect sense to have humans review it. There's no reason not to. It doesn't take that long to review, and it's at a high enough price point where the customer deserves that. And like, so it acts as like a harness, like, hey, here's some really microscopic defects. If you want to look at those, maybe this doesn't matter as much. It's not going to result in like net lower grades, but it hopefully will result in crazy stuff not getting missed. That's sort of the idea. And so like, that's one piece. And then I think longer term, I could see the technology existing on its own, basically to act as like a front end, almost like a collection discovery app where you take a stack of cards that you have, the old question of how much is this worth? You just go through everything, pre-grade them all with the app, and then you'll get a little ping saying, hey, the 1,000 cards you just scanned on your phone, there's 7 of these that are actually probably worth in the 200 to 300 plus range. You should send those in. And it'll just take the guesswork out of that process. I think that, of course, the devil's in the details, and like the difference between a 9.5 and a 10 is going to be like the toughest one to do with that. And I think that like that there's nuance there that's like, it's tricky, like we're pretty good at detecting numerical grades kind of down the line 1 to 10, but like that last bit, that's tricky, and it's not. So like for those reasons, I think it exists mostly as an assistive technology for now, because it's not. There's some subjectivity that just I think will always be there.
Right. No, I agree with that. I mean, they're always going to be subjectability in grading, no matter what. And I do like the way that you guys do look to be implementing it. And on that note, how soon is this technology going to be put into place? Has this has there been any talk of when this is going to start being used by graders grading cards?
I mean, I don't have dates. I mean, I was just working on the roadmap, like right before we got on here. So like, sure. I don't have dates on it yet. I have items, and like I can say that, I'm a collector. Everything that you would want is on that list. Like everything from faster delivery, better packaging, different ideas around like how to send cards in, different ideas around slabs. There's just so many different things. I think that there's a lot of things that we're looking to do. But starting at the top is really going to be speed, quality, kind of sanctity or integrity things. Like those are the big ticket items, which are the ones people care about, right? People want their cards back. They want their cards delivered in a timely manner, and they don't want to have, cards that are slab that have been, cut up and changed. And so that's the first place. There's tons of stuff too in the registry and how that's going to work and how the registry will tie into the photo process, right? Like the photos are kind of critical to social. So there's like a whole bunch of stuff like that. And it does, if you think about it, it all kind of points back up to photos and fingerprinting, right? Like it's kind of all starts there. It's like the backbone. It's like the data backbone for all that stuff. So that's definitely the first area, and I think like things will flow pretty nicely from there. But I don't have any specific times, unfortunately.
Sure, and as you said, you're focusing on the fingerprinting and getting that stuff all implemented initially. Long term, what else where can you see this technology going with PSA, and what else do you think that it could provide a value for collectors, both with getting their cards graded accurately and in terms of getting them back, like you said, in those time frames?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, it's just going to be about speed and efficiency and like quality control, right? Like that the research part will be streamlined because we can identify things by image. I think I love the idea of just a general use kind of like identification app that we can use to like just ID cards, and this pre-grading thing is like a really interesting tool too. I love the idea of involving like younger kids, like making the process more accessible for them. So we're going to look at ways to make it accessible to like people that probably find it difficult to participate, which, not too many kids that can afford to grade cards right now. And so like stuff like that. But I think like for the general customer, the near term stuff is really going to be about like integrity, like meaning integrity of the process and like and not letting fraudulent stuff through. But then also like increasing the speed and quantity. Like that's the chief complaints I think with PSA were generally just that it was taking too long. Like people like the brand, they like the grades. It's what sells cards. It's just it's the speed, and then it's the cost, and so like those are the areas where I think that we're going to lean heavily into.
Awesome, and I love the kids' ideas. I have a son that's slowly getting into collecting and is actually getting some of his first slabs now at 6 years old. So I do like hearing about that idea. But you just mentioned at a lower price point and everything. Can you see this as something to where when everything's caught up a little bit, when this technology is implemented, either possibly prices dropping a little bit, or maybe even some of those service levels that were taken away, possibly coming back now that, you have an easier way to get these cards through the door?
Yeah, honestly, I just haven't like dug in enough really to understand like the pricing changes, at least from what I can see from an outsider, seem to really just be like, how can we handle the insane demand? Right. I don't know what the like plan is exactly to like roll things back in. I know that there's a desire to obviously, like, I don't think anyone wants to leave it at $300 a card forever for everything. Like that's crazy. Right. But like, I don't know the specifics and I wouldn't be able to comment on it. Not because I can't, but I just don't know.
Well, totally understandable. So before I let you go here, and once again, I greatly appreciate you taking the time out to join us. I know you're incredibly busy getting all settled in, but let everybody know where they can find you if they'd like to reach out on Instagram or find out some more about Genamint and all that stuff, or any of your socials. Let them know where they can follow you at.
Yeah, good Twitter. My personal Twitter is great at Kevin Lenane. I'm super responsive to like direct messages and stuff. Like pretty answerable. I'll say this too. Like the plan for both Nat and I in this process is to be like very, very transparent. So like whatever we're doing, photo process, fingerprinting, like we're going to be very open about it. Like we're going to show it in action. And so like, you're going to see some of that stuff. I hope pretty early that you're going to see, hey, we said we're working on this and here's us working on it. Like, let's show you what's going on. So like I think there's a real desire, from the top down to do that. And so, now that the company's private, it makes things quite a bit easier to do that as well. Right. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think this is a wonderful step forward and something that is just going to help build that PSA brand even stronger than it already is. Kevin, thank you so much for joining the show, and good luck with everything here in the future.
All right. Thank you so much.
And once again, I'd like to thank Kevin Lenane for joining the show. Awesome interview right there. I was really looking forward to hearing about what exactly this tech could do for grading, and I love how open him and Nat have all been since PSA did go private and the turnover has begun. I think it's wonderful, and I really look forward to this. I honestly think this is going to be something that's going to help PSA tremendously. Now, the AI aspect of everything, that'll be debated up and down by people on, if it is AI or if it isn't. But what this is an artificial intelligence company that built a system that can fingerprint and work on cards. So they're not necessarily claiming that it's all AI, just that it's from an AI company. But I think that's being lost in people just hearing the term AI and thinking that, that's what it all is, when that's just not how it is. But there were a lot of really interesting things in there. I love hearing about the fact that the grading costs could be coming down, and this system is going to do wonders for the recrack and the resubmit stuff. Now, I know that, he said that there's not a problem with that, and that PSA doesn't really necessarily have a major problem with that. But a lot of this cracking and resubmitting stuff is a little out of hand when it comes to some people. I know people that have sent cards in 10 to 12 different times. And he mentioned it destroys pop reports. But not only that, I mean, the card, obviously, if you're sending it in and you're bumping it from an 8 to a 10 or something, you've done some type of alteration to the card. And so a lot of these cracks and things do involve alterations, and that's the type of thing that needs to be stopped. And I think this is going to tremendously speed up the grading process in terms of being able to pinpoint exactly what a grader should focus on initially. I mean, I can see this as something where they run the card through the system, where it points out, obvious defects, and then the grader obviously automatically knows, all right, these are the places I need to look at. This is what I need to start with. Let me double check. Let me look over this. Perform the grading process as normal. And I think that's going to exponentially help with accurate grades. Now, as you said, this is not going to lead to, less tens or anything and all these ridiculous things that I've heard people say, but it's going to ensure accuracy, and it's going to help ensure, like he said, fraud. It's going to stop that completely. But I love the fingerprinting of the cards because that can help tremendously with provenance. And that's something that as we get into these being a commodity, a true asset class, and fine art, really, provenance is incredibly important. And having that in cards is something that I think is very important, and something that I think hopefully we start to see a lot more of. But between the temporary shutdown of certain services, adding in all these new features, I mean, PSA is doing a lot of stuff that I know it's frustrating collectors in the market a little bit, to be honest, that as it has cooled a tad, which just leveling off and not, continuing on its astronomical spike, which if anyone thought that was going to continue, you're nuts. But, it's hit its cooling off period right now. And it's no coincidence that it's when SGC raised their prices, when BGS raised their prices, and PSA went on a temporary shutdown of all services besides Super Express. So, I mean, the market has cooled a little bit, but these are moves that are going to help when all this stuff comes back up. When the playoffs start, baseball gets really into gear and not just, super early into the season. And then you get the football draft and the lead up to football, when all of that stuff starts moving again and not so many massive, huge products come out, but a lot more affordable ones that other collectors can get into. You're going to see that market take off right again. And when PSA opens back up, look for it to be a lot better than it was before, both in the processing area and in the grading department, as I think that this was a brilliant move by them, accessing this company before they even truly got the platform even off the ground. So, I mean, that right there shows you how much that they believe in this, as Nat is a brilliant person and surrounds himself with an incredibly brilliant team. So these people have done their due diligence, and they are in the tech industry, and they know the tech industry incredibly well. So I see this as nothing but a massive positive for PSA as they look to increase the grading services. But cannot thank Kevin again for joining the show. I know he's been so busy since this started. As he said, he literally was working on stuff for this software for the company and just decided to stop to do the interview. So greatly appreciated, but really looking forward to seeing how this affects things going forward in the future. But before we wrap everything up, just wanted to mention one other thing that was pretty big that came out today, and they'd been talking about it for a while now. But PWCC officially opened their they are opening their brand new auction house, which is launching May 10th. It's their premier auction, they're calling it, the PWCC Premier Auction. And this is going to be for cards valued over $50,000. And this is them basically going away from eBay for all of their high dollar stuff. And they're touting industry leading seller fees. You have to become an approved bidder, obviously, like most high end stuff. and there's extending bidding, all that type of stuff. Basically, they're taking a golden auctions and a heritage auctions, and now PWCC is launching their own version of that. Now, with so many people using the PWCC Vault, this is probably, I'm sure they're absolutely loving this, but I think PWCC may be underestimating the strength of eBay here. I don't know, outside of people that use the Vault, I don't know how many people you're going to see navigate towards this unless they really have to have the card, obviously, that PWCC is going to have in there. I'm very interested to see how this is. I know a lot of people love to hate on PWCC stuff, and there's rightful reason, as they've done a lot of very shady and wrong stuff in the past. But this is a very interesting development right here, creating their own auction house. I mean, PWCC is really building out and trying to take over the high-end market right now. And this move right here, going in and creating your own auction site, I mean, that's going to be huge. Now, all these auctions are going to be 10-day auctions with extended bidding and hosted exclusively on the PWCC Marketplace website. So PWCC adding to their vault with a really big marketplace, another high-end marketplace jumping into the arena. It's getting very crowded, and I think that right there has a massive effect on some of these high-end cards and these high-end boxes maybe not getting the money that they deserve. When you spread them out over too many marketplaces, sometimes it's hard to follow exactly where things are, and that right bidder could be looking at the wrong website at the wrong time. I know, it's not too hard to follow all these places, but sometimes people have, other things to do. So, I don't know. Interesting to see PWCC expanding from their vault, moving their high-end stuff away from eBay and putting it exclusively on their site, and trying to attack Golden and Heritage with some industry-leading seller fees. We'll see how that all works out. We'll see how everything is. I've been seeing a lot of problems from the vault, from wrong cards being sent to numerous things, and that's on the eBay platform, and now we're moving into their own platform. We'll see how it is, but I think they're really underestimating the power of eBay here, as a lot of people did a long time ago, and I'm not so sure that this is the best idea for them. It would be much smarter to have their users either put them on eBay or move them over to a different consignment service, at least in my opinion. Now, I know it might put a little more money in the seller's pockets, which is awesome. I mean, that's wonderful if you're selling those high-end cards, but the visibility aspect and everything, I'm a little concerned with. We'll see how it goes. I mean, PWCC seems to have rebounded from what was a rough year not too long ago, but it could get rough again. We're not fully certain on that yet, as there's still a lot going on, but we'll see what happens with the new PWCC Premier Auction House. Quite interesting. Did not expect to see that. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Let Me Get That Podagraph. As always, I'd like to thank my awesome sponsors, Above the Rim, Sports Cards and Breaks live on Facebook, Vintage Breaks, Retail Breaks, and of course, Walk-Off Submissions. Could not do the show without you guys and Wax Pack Nation, who has always powered the show. So thank you guys so much, and make sure to tune in to Hobby Hotline every single Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We've got a great cast this week with Dr. Beckett. Join Dr. B and friends for an awesome episode, as so much has gone on in the hobby to talk about. And as always, join myself and Texas Card Dude Brad Bethune for Let Her Rip every single Wednesday. It is live now, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Make sure you join the show as we give away cards live, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get into all the giveaways, as we're giving away at least 3 different cards each week and cards live on the show. So tons of chances to win some awesome prizes just from checking out our socials and following and subscribing to our YouTube channel. But anyway, guys, Another amazing week in the hobby. More dominoes fall. PSA continues to improve their technology. Topps jumps into the NFT market. I told you guys this year was going to be full of massive moves. We haven't even begun. We've got an incredible special guest joining us next week. But till next time, guys, you know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits, and we'll talk to you then. Peace!